Well, good morning, friends. It's time to animate. And I've been having a little debate with myself whether to kind of somewhat move away from live streaming back to uploads. So for the moment, we're going to just record this session and see how it goes. Over in my other screen, I'm going to pull up episode episode 3 of Salt Night so I can see what the heck it is I'm working on this morning. Hello, episode 3. Where are you? Where are you? Salt Night Veg. Episode 3. Boom. Okay. So, when last we met, I had this pencil test for this shot. Oops, we don't want to be in loop mode, do we? So, pencil test. Looks pretty good. I will say that as I'm looking at this now, this is why I have been cutting. Whenever I create a new scene, I take the initial drawing and render it out as an image sequence and cut it into the show so I can immediately see how it flows with the prior shots. And also, as the shot evolves and comes together, I can, of course, see how it is progressing. So here we're going from pencil test. And the reason I mentioned that is that it just occurred to me in this case, this is a great example where a little bit of a push in on the shot would help the emotion of it. Now I have to say, now that I'm thinking about it, let me look at the signal flow here. I'm going to lock my my playhead to the shot because I think what I really want to do is have it pushing in, boom, until he snaps into this pose, and then I think we'll do a strong push. I'm going to go ahead and reframe that a little bit because that's going to be so quick that you're not going to notice it. But I'll bet you that's going to help not only hide the very rapid jump. See, look at that. It really hides some of the flaws in the animation. And as, you know, let's just say economical animators who are pragmatically facing the reality that, by the way, that I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. I guess it went by. But you know, as producers pragmatically facing the fact that, hey, creating this all by myself, there's certain limits in terms of, you know, we want to use every trick in the book to squeeze entertainment value out of the show without necessarily having to translate that into lots more drawings and lots more ink and paint, which is, of course, very expensive. This is actually a killer solution in that regard. Now, there's one thing I'm also thinking about, though, here, as I'm looking at. Okay, Lucas says, there's something in this expression that I didn't realize was there when I originally drew it. This change to here, I'm going to say this suggests something else. I have no idea what the dialogue is because the script is still being worked out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control Drag and move this over. Okay, am I going to move this over here? I guess we'll just, since the software is being stupid, let's just put in another keyframe that way. Okay. I'm thinking that right here, we want to now do the opposite. Let's have a rapid pull back. Actually, let's just restore it. Let's see how that feels. So there's a bit of a little bit of a letdown, like, hey, I know, we need a boat. I like it. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do is, and so anyway, what's the lesson here? The lesson here for you guys is use every trick in the book to squeeze entertainment value into and out of your show that doesn't necessarily require you to do tons of laborious animation, because laborious animation is simply really, really, really expensive. Expensive meaning the time it takes. It's not necessarily money expensive for you. Okay, I'm going to hide his hand. So we can get Luca inked and painted. I'll say, so let's go create a new layer, and this is going to be a color layer. This will be okay. So the big talk of the the big topic the last week has been about flatting, and there's really no reason to do flatting in this shot, but there's also no harm in doing flatting. If I was going to add a layer to smack into the background, okay, so BKGD, that's my usual acronym to mean background, then the background drawing, we know from, let me switch this so that we get the preview. We know from the prior shot that Luca's back is facing into the cave. Okay, so that means that the light is actually pointing, in at him like this. And by the way, I can see that my smoothing is on, so I'm hitting Alt Q to turn the smoothing off. I believe that is a hotkey you would have to set yourself. Okay, but the light is like this. Okay, and then the obvious question is, well, what's in the cave? So I'm just thinking, the cave's going to go to blackness. Let's go ahead and use black and just kind of scribble this in here, okay? And then let's switch to an oil paintbrush so we can actually block this in pretty quickly. So now you can see one reason for flatting is that if compositionally I want to have the background in there to be able to kind of see how my characters are going to sit in the mix, so to speak, then obviously a character that is inked but not painted, you can't see. That's pretty obvious, right? So now I'm going to actually make this job simpler by just using the fill tool, because I'm really doing it the hard way for no good reason other than the fact that I'm sort of talking about the process. But now I'm going to say, let's just bring the contrast or the color, the value up just a little bit, so that we can kind of hint about some, I don't know if they come from the ceiling, if they're stalactites or stalagmites, I don't remember. But the idea is that way back here, you're looking way into the cave, like that. And then I'm going to say we want to have a little bit more of that type of action in the foreground. Now, if we turn this down and no longer silhouette, we can see that this one's going to be blocked by Melchizedek in the foreground. So for that reason, it probably makes more sense to shift this over here a little bit, which kind of puts it on the rule of thirds. And here comes, jeez, I tried to mute the microphone. It's like, and I clicked and I missed. It's the stupid allergy season. From September 1st until the first, till the first frost is not fun. So I apologize, guys, for sneezing in your ear. Who knows, since I can do some editing on this video, I may edit that nasty sneeze out. Okay, so, and then I'm going to go ahead and just give some really vague hints of more of these here in the background, because I just think it looks cool, Okay, so essentially, in fact, I'm going to move this one as well. I'm going to move that up just a little bit. And I'm working in a single layer here, obviously, just everything's flat, so that means there's a little bit of repainting required here and there. But what I want to do is create a hole here that frames in Luca to a degree, not too explicitly, but a little bit, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to go one more value level higher. And as we come more towards the front of the cave, we'll allow a little bit higher values to sneak in. So I'm going to go one more level even higher. and we're letting these little formations grab some of the light that is coming in from outside the doorway of the cave. Okay? So now I'm going to go down to a really small brush and just put in little hints of light, of kind of specular light. Okay. It's not a bad idea. Let's put the background in a group. I think I'm ready to go to another layer now. It's not a bad idea to think, when you're doing backgrounds, to think about the complementary color. That means, and there's other color schemes you can look at, like thirds, breaking it up into thirds. But what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to actually cut directly across to the other side of the color wheel. And then I'm going to go down to a pretty dark value and use my airbrush. And I always reserve the right to have this not work that well. Okay, this is just something I'm going to try. Okay, so I'm going to say that light source is sort of coming in, and so I'm using the blue to offset to sort of counteract, neutralize, and provide a sense of depth against the more red or brown type of tones. I'm going to put this in overlay mode just to see what it does. Okay, it looks like if I'm going to make it work the way I'm trying to, then I'm going to have to punch it up a little hotter. But I do, yes, I definitely like this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to neutralize that blue a little bit. Okay, and then what I'm also going to do is go back and do what I was originally going to do, which is actually put in a tiny bit of color like that. Okay, so that's basically my cave. It's got nice depth to it, frames in the character as well, but the problem is we can't see Luca. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab a neutral gray here. It is a dark situation, so a lot of times for flatting you'd probably be up here somewhere, but I'm just going to put it right in the middle. Okay, so let's just turn the background off. And so the flatting situation is there's multiple ways to do it, but the most robust way, in my opinion, is to create a layer and just fill it. Oh, there we go. Filled that with neutral gray. Okay? And then we'll move that underneath our character, so that's not actually going to be in our color layer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a layer above our character. Okay? I'm going to hide Mel, by the way. Why did we do that? Well, now I'll just put a little darker color here, and then I can fill this. You see what it did? But I'm going to put this layer in erase mode. Okay? And so now as we go along, we can, we'll control insert, by the way, put a keyframe in there. Okay, so we need a keyframe here, we need a keyframe here, and a keyframe here. So, and basically, from an erasing standpoint, if the flatting doesn't work, then we know we have a leak. And there it happened, right there. Okay? So then, the proper way to deal with it would be to go to, switch my inking brush, and just search. I think it's right here. My guess would be that is my leak. So I'm going to call this erase, and I'm going to call this flat. Or actually, let's call it flatting. It's a little clearer. Okay, so fill tool worked perfectly. Fill tool. Okay, I'm surprised that one didn't leak, but there you go. Okay, so why did we do that? It just gives us an instant read. In the case of Melchizedek, we might as well just hit the G key, which is the freehand path tool, and just draw this shape right here. Okay, so Mel's in the foreground, and frankly, probably we should, yeah, that's going to be way too bright. It's amazing how little contrast it takes. Okay, and I'm going to actually move this into the purple zone so we actually can get the sense of the color of Mel's hair. Okay, so remember, as I said, the light would be behind Melchizedek, shining in from outside the cave. So for that reason, he would actually be illuminated from behind. That's, of course, again, way too bright. But that just gives a little bit of definition to the character, and then we could play around a bit with the curves and see what happens if we illuminate that a little bit. And then in our case, we probably want to punch up the reds and punch up the blues so that we actually introduce a little bit more of a purpley kind of vibe. Okay, and then let's go back to the RGBA. And basically we want to get it to the point where we can see it against the background. So that, and we can always change it later, obviously. Okay, so boom, let's render the whole shot and see how it looks in the show. What time is it? 9:27. I've been recording for only 15 minutes. That's crazy. Well, this is actually a good reason why I'm doing it this way, is that it seems to me that I am more productive when I'm not live streaming. When I'm live streaming, I have a tendency to start talking about things that have nothing to do with the work at hand. And I'm actually a little gobsmacked to look at the clock and realize I've only been live streaming 15 minutes and I've gotten a lot done. So this is definitely an endorsement to me that uploading is probably better for me personally than live streaming. It just is. Okay, so I'm going to cut this to the clipboard. Excuse me. Control-Shift-R. Did that work? I gotta go over here to wake up Krita. And yep, there, that worked. Okay, so now I'm gonna shrink this down a bit. But so this is a tip Sifter showed me the other day that allows you to find your gives you the ability to put a reference image in that you can then sample. So let's use the fill tool and hit Control to sample that color. And wakey here, Krita. Okay, that was actually grabbing the blue. Okay, there we go. Now, okay, so as an alternative to actually dragging an image in as a layer, at first I wasn't so sure it was all that useful, but I'm actually kind of sort of changing my mind on that. Okay, before we go too much further though, I want to make some quick amendments to the drawing. Now that the flatting is in there, I'm going to say I not only see that I want his neck in the drawing, but also I can see that I'm going to have some leaks that would be preferred to not have. So there's that. Okay, cool. And here we got the same situation. Just going to close that up. Love it. Okay, so now we can go to the color layer. And once again, let's just sample this flesh tone. And then I'm going to say probably just a little bit brighter in this case. So those who are purists about having I'm inserting keyframes here, by the way. Purists about having a consistent color key. The sequence I'm working on right now is a great example of why it turns out it's really not that important. And actually referencing your colors from your prior shots actually makes a lot more sense. And the reason is that, I mean, not only is every sequence a different lighting situation, sometimes it's day, sometimes it's night, yada, yada, yada. There's a good argument to be made that you could use a consistent color key and then use a tint layer to make it adjust and adapt to the current sequence situation. That's totally right. That's true. But all my argument is what's it matter? You know, if what I'm doing works, then what do I care? You know. So that's my kind of pragmatic view about it. Okay, so and some of this stuff, like his hat, you can ballpark it for crying out loud. You know, just make it feel good. And then again, you can still use a tint to punch it up a bit if it's appropriate to do so. So that color is definitely going to be too dark. That feels pretty good. That feels pretty good. I will say this. It could be an illusion, but it does appear to me that the actual filling process is, I'm seeing the value in flatting because, first of all, you're guaranteed that all these fills are going to look good because you got this erase layer that's actually blocking his perimeter. So there's that. Also, when you're doing the flatting, you're really just doing a fill check is what you're doing. And so you're getting an instant bead on making sure that your character is filled. And if it is, then obviously you're not going to bump into any leaks once you start assigning the individual colors. And I have to say, it's not that it really takes that much time more to, let's say, engage in a slightly riskier approach to color and filling. But this is just me, guys, so take it for what it's worth. Probably the single most little action that you do as an animator that for me tweaks me, you know, stress wise, like where it's like, is when I'm doing fill operations and I keep bumping into leaks. It really stops me in my tracks. Obviously, that's a whiny attitude and kind of ridiculous, but it is true. Okay, so this is probably too dark. Yeah, I'm going to split the difference, by the way. But the other thing I'm liking here is that I've done coloring on the same layer. You know, for example, I've done it in behind mode. I've definitely learned to prefer not to do. I mean, I've learned to break things into layers a lot because not only is it seems like if I put the color, if I bake it all together, you know, which I'm going to do with his hand. Okay, I'm going to do that with his hand. But I definitely have found when I bake it all together that I always seem to wind up regretting it. Now, Luca's eyes, he has pretty interesting eyes, actually. He's got a sort of a tan. I'm going to go ahead and put those in there at the risk of biting into his pupils a little bit. But I like that. All right, I'm going to sample that color. And let's go ahead and put a little smidgen of it here. Okay, and now here we're going to, obviously the pupils are colored in on the ink layer, so we're kind of safe as far as not bumping into the pupils. And I'm doing it this way so that I can then take the whites of the eyes color, close the gaps, and then do a fill. And so the color, the irises will already be there, obviously. Okay, sample that. Okay, before we go any further, we need to make sure we close our gaps. And then hopefully, once we get all this stuff colored, the process of doing the tweens that are nothing but transformations will be pretty quick and easy because we're going to do the transformations on the entire group. So we'll take the whole Luca group, use the transform tool, hitting the A key, and then that will cause every single one of these layers to be getting keyframes added to them. So fill tool, Sorry, I'm on the wrong layer. There, fella. Okay, that was a little sloppy. I'll come back to that here in just a minute. Let's hit the N key. I want to see what the actual size is. Yes, I'm going to fix that. Okay, so B key, sample the flesh tone. Sorry for sniffing, guys. Yeah. Definitely want to clean that up a bit. That feels pretty good. Okay, and Luca, I don't even know officially what his eyebrow color is. I'm going to assume it's kind of a brown. Let's go G, freehand path tool in behind mode so that we can just lasso. Yeah, that'll work. Cool. I wonder if there's a lasso select mode. I never thought about that. Like this. I've never used this. What? If I do a freehand selection, well, I guess I have used it, but it doesn't. That would be an interesting thing to ponder. A freehand selection that snaps to the, like almost like a fill tool. Honestly, there's ways you could do that. There's ways you could achieve that, but I'm not going to get into that now. Okay, let's go ahead and I would say let's render this into the show and get a quick beat on how things are looking. But yeah, I love it. I think this is a great looking shot. Kind of move my microphone when I sniff. Okay, so let's just take a look. If you jump over here, you can see this is the flatted version. Once I click on here, it will reveal the colored version. Boop, just like that. Okay, so there we go. Here's the flow of it. Yeah, I like it. So he's going to say, I know, we need a boat. And then these guys are going to be like non-plus. So this really works out well, scripting-wise, because we're going to be able to, because, okay, the script isn't totally written yet, but it's sort of plotted. So we're going to be able to reuse this shot. This will be nice. We can reuse this shot by having them both looking at Luca with that sort of, as I say, non-plus look in their eyes. So, and that'll be a little bit of a funny button on the situation, because obviously, really, where are we supposed to get a boat, you know, kind of situation. So, okay, well, we need a shadow layer, so let's go SHD, hit the G key, and insert. Again, I'm going to insert keyframes on each of these, and then, as you guys probably are aware, once we, let's turn on the pencil test here, and I'm going to call this PT and move this up to the top so we can see the darn thing. Okay, and as you can see, you've got a tween here. There's going to be some additional animation of his eyes, but this is basically just going to be transforms other than the eye animation. And I do reserve the right to decide that the eye animation isn't actually that important. We'll see. Some of you are horrified that I would suggest such a thing, but I'm just going to say that's going to be my prerogative. And in this case, it would probably be just as effective to maybe do a slight shift on the eyebrows, but then just have the eyes dart back and forth. I don't need to redraw them like I did here, where I made them kind of big and round and stuck a blink in. I can get a blink in. I can get the darting of the pupils without having all the work of the redraws. And I'm not going to be stupid about it. We only want to do what really, strictly speaking, needs to be done. All right, G key in raw mode, that's right. Okay, let's get that shadow thing in there. then we'll lighten it up here in just a second. Okay, this is going to be brought down to about there, and now we're just going to follow that through. A little bit of a shadow under there. I would say we'll put it here as well. This is a one frame tween, so we've got a little bit of wiggle room. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, you know, when a one frame tween, you know, even at 8 frames per second, a one frame tween is only on the screen for obviously 1/8 of a second. Well, that's just not enough time for your brain to digest exactly what you just saw. You know, what we do is we assemble a narrative in our mind based on what we saw, right? So as animators, that means we've got a little bit of latitude to not be quite as picky about things like characterization and whatnot. And if anyone wants to challenge me on this, I defy you to record, you know, some anime or something. Look at the big battle scene in the first episode of One Punch Man, and you'll see that characterization goes totally out the window once things are moving fast. It just does. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't matter. You know, as long as the colors are kind of right and the landing spots where the character ends up is appropriately drawn and all the rest, then you're fine. You're going to be fine. As I often say here, you can get away with murder when it comes to motion. It's actually it's an elegant trade-off that serves the animator. And what I mean by that is, in other words, when you give yourself more work to do by moving things a lot, that's the bad news is you have more work to do. The good news is that also means that you can be less picky about some of the details when things are moving fast. So it all just kind of balances out in the end, you know. Okay, and again, sorry guys for sniffing. Let me see here. I'm going to grab the ink layer and select all those frames, hit Control M, which is the curves tool, and we're going to do a multi-frames adjustment. See what I mean? So we're going to take the low end, the darks, and just bring them up a little bit. Yeah, that usually seems to be about right. It's about an 8% rise, and then just a smidgen, about a 5% push on the reds. Not quite. Actually, it looks to me to be about 3 to 4%. Okay, I'm going to turn off my mic for a second because I think I'm going to sneeze. Okay, so that lightened up the ink, put the ink where it needs to be. And so let's pop it into the show and see what we've got. And then we'll go ahead and do those tweens and just tighten things up. Honestly, again, ever the pragmatist and cheapskate, it's interesting to me, by kind of being open to the possibilities at the editing stage, I came up with this camera move, which I like the way it snaps to that and then snaps to this. Okay, so obviously there's a correction we need to do there, but the interesting thing is now that the edit is in there, the question becomes, do we need the hand at all? What we had in the pencil test was his hand going up in the air with the finger pointing toward the ceiling. Like, I know, honestly, it wouldn't hurt, but I don't know that it's at all necessary. I think we're capturing we're capturing his thought process here just fine. So yeah, I'm going to say we're probably going to wind up chucking that. We're going to probably chuck it. So here's the hand ink. Now, to be fair, it's the cost of putting it in there is going to be pretty small. Okay, I'll show you. So if I sample his skin color, okay, for the hand, the way I was going to do this, and it looks like, let me check something here. I need to put this up here as well, and let's get rid of the background. I want to check something. It seems to me, okay, I think, yeah, we can put this one in, but not bother with the finger up in the air. I don't think it helps that much. Okay, so I'm going to go fill in behind mode. So when I'm using, you know, sometimes when I'm doing like a hand like this, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and bake the color into it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do here. Okay, so that means for the hand, we'll even bake a shadow in. So for the shadow, I'm going to click here, but then type in 15. So we've got a 15% shadow that's alpha locked. Okay, so I'm going to do a G key, which is of course the freehand path tool, on the hand ink layer, and then fairly carefully, not in behind mode, silly, but in normal mode. Again, we need to change this back to 15%. It's because I changed modes. When you change modes, it kind of sets everything back to the default. Okay. Alright. Okay. By the way, friends, I want to say the one problem I do see with flatting is that, let's take the hand out for a moment, is that you do lose a little bit of your ink line. However, there's a way we can compensate for that. We can compensate for that by putting the erase layer immediately over the color layer, but not the ink lines, and see what happened. Now, I did make a mistake here in the hand, in that I really need to actually raise the level of the ink lines, because, you know, it's well, the easiest. Okay, look, we could do a curves. Whoops. So Control M. We could do curves, and we could raise the level up. But as you can see, the problem with that is that we're going to also raise the level of all the color that we really don't want to change. We can fight with the curves tool like this and try to make it work. And if we're careful, indeed, as you can see here, we can make it work. Now, I would say a slight adjustment on the saturation would probably help too, like that. So as far as, I mean, and this is a single frame, it's not even animated yet. So to correct it that way is probably fine, okay? I'm going to say, though, that this is a little aggressive on the low end. And if I change it a little bit, well, I don't know. Actually, I'm going to say it's not sufficient. It either looks too dark or too light. So is there a better way? Yeah, the better way is you put the layer in a group that's problematic for you, and then create a new layer right above it, and that layer is going to be the color that we want our ink lines to be. Okay, so actually it's going to be about here, and then it's going to be given a tiny bit of red, like that. And we can always make an adjustment to it after the fact as well, by the way. Right? Oops, we want our opacity to be 100%. Okay, we can always make an adjustment of this color after the fact. So this is going to be in lighten mode. And by putting it in lighten mode, what that means is only the colors that are darker than this color I just put in there will get changed. So all the interior colors don't get affected at all, as you can see. So that's good. And then we can alpha lock it like this, which means that anything outside of the hand ink layer will be invisible. And now that, as a solution, turns out to have been much better. But now we can see, if we compare these ink lines, you can tell it's not quite right. We can fix it this way. Let's go way in here and sample this color. Okay, now just to be sure this is working properly, I'm going to jump around here. Okay, so that's the color we want. And then we go back to this layer, solo it, and refill it with that color. So not much of a change, a little bit, but now you're going to see that the ink lines match perfectly. Okay, and because this is a single frame, we might as well go ahead and merge this group, and we'll just again call this hand. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to turn on the pencil test because I want to use that as a guide. So it actually should be above. So we're going to call this hand PT. Put it above the drawing of the hand. And on the hand, we're going to add a transform mask. Okay, so we're going to put an animation key immediately on frame 0. And as is my normal policy, I never do animation curve editing or add additional keyframes in the animation curves interface. Why? Because it's buggy as hell and I don't trust it. So what I do is I put a keyframe here, and any additional keyframes I just add in the timeline by hitting insert. It works fine. And the advantage to that, in terms of, if you say, well, wait, you need to be able to edit the curves. No, you don't. If you wanna make an adjustment in the smoothness or the easing, just do it by adding additional keyframes judiciously. Trust me, friends, it works. So now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to just simply hit the A key. Put that there. Obviously, we have this problem here, and it's a big one. That's definitely a serious problem. And this transition point, I actually want to favor the start, not the end, more. Okay, so if that's not completely clear, let me show. When it moves now, see what's going to happen. Okay, so that's that. And if we're going to do transform, actually, I'm going to get rid of the transform mask, as a matter of fact, now that I think about it. And I'm going to take this pencil test for the hand and put it outside of the group. Why am I doing that? Well, because actually, where is his pencil test? Did I erase the pencil test? Oh, there it is. Okay. The pencil test, yeah, we had his whole body move down. I'm not going to worry about his eye animation at this point. So what I'm doing is grabbing the entire group of Luca, and there's a case to be made for doing this with a transform mask instead of hard-coded animation keys. And the case for that is simply that when you use the transform tool, you have to keep resetting the center. Whereas with a transform mask, if I put it right there, it's going to remember the center from move to move. But that's okay. We're going to go ahead and now go to this frame, which is going to be a itsy bitsy move. So what I'll do is I'll put the pivot point right here below his armpit, just because that's easy to remember. So this is going to be, oh, that's it. That was the whole move right there. Okay, and now I'm again in the Luca group. So what's happening right now is every single layer here is getting keyframes added to it as I make this adjustment. Now what we're going to do is come back to the hand layer alone and allow that to come up like that. Okay, now can we solve our scaling problem a bit by just stretching things slightly? I think in this case we probably can. I think in this case we can. We're probably okay to do that. And so we do want to probably stretch it a bit there as well, just to kind of keep things consistent. Okay, so then what do we get? Okay, nice. Now, because we had the push in the show, let's go ahead and put the background in. Take the pencil test out. And let's go ahead and look at it. I suspect because of the cropping we did on the frame, the little bit of bleed at the bottom is not going to be visible. If it turns out it is, then what we could do is take the entire Luca group and just add a transform mask and make him slightly bigger as a last final step. Yeah, you don't see it. You don't see it. Okay, okay. Got it. What we're gonna do again, I hate to be a complete schmo as far as trying to avoid work, but honestly, right here, I'm just thinking all we do is just move the hand. Okay? I always like when this happens. I know I'm a lazy bum and I don't want to do extra work for no good reason, but all I care about is the storytelling. If the visual storytelling's working, and I'm going to say this. I'm just looking for the pose that feels right. I like that. Okay, and then here, we should just drop it out. Actually, I'm going to do that. Just now, I don't like it because the pose is all wrong. Okay, so my choice is to get rid of it or change the pose. Okay, so let's go ahead and change the pose just because it's not that much, not that much hassle to do it. So I'm going to solo the hand layer, and what I want, and it might not work. I reserve the right to fail here, of course. What I'm going to do is grab that color that's kind of sort of our ink color, and I really don't know what I'm doing. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab the freehand path tool, and I am going to, really dudes, I am going to just draw the outline that I can see in my head. So this is a little strange way to work, I admit, but it actually works kind of well. Okay. In fact, to tell you the truth, friend, it would be really interesting to me to create a cartoon where the whole thing is basically done this way. You don't even deal with ink lines. You just deal with shapes of color. And okay, so now I'm gonna work back into it like this, and by gum, make it work. So again, guys, you will hopefully forgive me for sniffing into your ears. Okay, and now in this case, I just have to be a little bit careful smacking an outline in there. So I stay within the lines, so to speak. I could alpha lock it actually so that it's impossible to stray too far, but not that important. Okay, hit the 5 key to undo the undo the rotation. I had a brain fart there for a moment. Okay, I'm going to turn the opacity down to 15% and then alpha lock it so that I can actually go back to black here and do the shadowing this way. It's going to be a little more both flexible and accurate. So again, I do reserve the right to get this all done and then discover that I don't like it. Okay, so now here's the problem you're going to have. Obviously right there with the shadows. So what do you do about that? It's easy. Just go back into normal mode at full opacity and sample the shadow color and then patch it. Just fix the problem, right? Okay. So I don't like the positioning there. I like the idea of it, and we need a boat. I love it. I love it. Worked perfectly. Okay, cool. Okay. Again, moving my microphone around so that I'm not sniffing in everybody's ear too much. Cool. All right, so now we'll let that render, and then let's see how it feels in the show. And then I think the next thing that's going to come up, obviously we haven't done any lip sync yet, but the next thing that's going to come up is the eyes. Oh man, I mean, from a storytelling standpoint, I think it's spot on. I think it looks really good. I don't know if this is necessarily the best hand I ever drew in my life, but I think we're in good shape. Okay, so he goes like this, and then what I'm going to do, just trying to feel where I think right there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we'll go into the ink layer, and actually, can I select 2 layers at the same time? Yeah. So ink and color, I'm going to go Control Insert. Let's see if that worked. It did not work. So you have to Control Insert both. Layers individually. Sorry, I'm moving my microphone around so I don't in everybody's ears. It's really freaking maddening. Okay. G key, E key. Get rid of the ink. Okay. And then draw it back in like so. Grab the color, G key, just lasso it. Okay, back to the ink layer. Obviously got a little tiny erase to do right there. Okay, then what I want to do is do the darting thing. So I would say probably Control Insert here and Control Insert here, and then we're going to have a duplicate of the blink here. So this is what I'm looking for. I want to have the eye dart around a bit here. So I'm hitting the B key and the E key. I'm going to just erase all of this. I'm not in erase mode, and stop everything, even though it kind of worked. I don't want to be stupid, so let's do this correctly. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Go to the color layer. Now let's put in the whites of the eyes like this. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the prior frame. This is a little bit strange, but what I'm going to do is grab the color like that, just so that I have it as a reference. Okay, so I'm going to go to this frame, hit Control Shift V, which pastes it into the frame, but then I'm going to move it down to here. Okay, and as you can see, it's not exactly right, but it's not too bad either. So let's grab this color, hit the B key, we're in the color frame. And now what we're going to do is just smack all this back in there. Hit the N key. and see if it worked. It looks like it did. B key. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is select all of this. Control C, Control Shift V, A key, and then bring this over here, shrink it a little bit, and okay, and now we can sort of compensate for the roughness of it by just painting back into it and over. Okay, like so. B key, N key for normal size, and now let's look at the action, see how it feels. Not bad. Not bad. Okay. Okay, and this seems to me to demand a blink. So color, Control Insert, ink, Control Insert. This was not supposed to be the shadow layer, it was supposed to be the color layer. Control Insert, and again, Control Insert, and then this layer here, let's start with the ink, G key. We're going to put it in erase mode, and we're going to just lasso the drawing of the eye like this. So we can then grab the B key and not be in erase mode, and I'm going to go ahead and just make my life a little easier like this, being that I'm right-handed. Okay, 5 key. Now in the color layer, we'll sample the skin, hit the G key, and just erase everything. Essentially just paint over it. Okay. Nice. Okay, so we might want to give this guy a mouth. M-O-U-T-H. And we'll go back here, insert a blank keyframe, because until we get here, we don't need the mouth. Okay, G key. No. Insert B key. A. Okay, I'm going to hold that slight longer. And we're going to do it this way. Okay, I'm going to turn this slightly. Insert a keyframe, go back to the G key. Okay, so we're going to have to animate that last frame, obviously. We need a boat. Insert B key. Okay, this oh, actually, I guess I got that right. So now, normally with the mouth, if you turn it down to about 50-60%, lets the skin shine through. I know. We need a boat. Okay, why did... Okay, that must have been a buffer thing. It looked like the mouth was remaining perfectly black in these frames here, but then light again in the other frames. So that, again, must have been a buffering issue there for half a second. Save our work. We might as well render it and pop it into the show and see how things are looking, because I think the shot is done, actually. And we did it in exactly an hour. So if you figure an hour to do the pencil test and then an hour to do this work, I would have to say that is a pretty impressive 7 seconds of animation to be done from start to finish in 2 hours, roughly. That's it. You guys, there will be more later.